Time for another Tacky Talk with State Representative Tacky Chan of the 2nd Norfolk District here in Quincy. Hey, Tacky.
The days are blending still.
Yes, they do.
And we're going to have a very unusual July 4th this year with no parades, no family fun nights the day before in large crowds, more people traveling locally for a long weekend. And of course, people are still struggling. Unemployment rates are 16%. So unfortunately, not everyone's going to have a good July 4th. But, it'd be nice to get a break from the current situation on news, I think is the way to put it.
Yeah, but statistically wise, at least here in Massachusetts and a lot of the Northeast, the numbers on the virus are looking good.
Oh, absolutely. We actually had 1 day of no deaths reported, which is incredible considering it seemed not that long ago. It's been about 2+ months ago where the spike was enormous and there was a fear of an overrun in our hospital system. And thankfully, the governor and the legislature and cities and towns and National Guard and community health centers and all the hospitals and nurses, doctors groups, support staff for medical facilities, the guys that feed you, the guys that clean the floors, the guys that deal with the administrative end of that stuff. They pulled it together and, put us in a very stable position. And, thankful for all the people who social distance, wash their hands, limited human contact. Unfortunately, keep away from your parents who may be in assisted living facility or senior housing unit. Try to keep ourselves isolated really does make a difference.
The big fear now is folks from the hot spots coming here to Massachusetts and causing another spike. But I heard the governor say that there's some constitutional issues around, banning them basically.
Yeah, the Constitution Commerce Clause, the U.S. Constitution Commerce Clause was created to ensure freedom of commerce between states back in the colonial era, and I'm sure a history major will argue with me about this. But back in the colonial era, when they formed the Constitution, it had 13 different currencies, it had 13 different tariffs, it had 13 different mechanisms of license. And to have a functional U.S. economy, you can't have 13 different systems. So the U.S. Commerce Clause basically forced all the states to adopt open trade with each other, basically free trade agreements, for lack of a better term, in the modern era.
Yeah.
And of course, the U.S. established a consistent currency by Constitution. They create the currency. So as a result, you can't treat an out-of-state or in-state business different, and you can't deny people access to your state. It would probably be the only exception I could see if the national government, the federal government, declared martial law and issued habeas corpus, which is it habeas corpus? I keep forgetting my Latin terms. But they would issue a temporary suspension of certain rights. They can't do it permanently, but they can suspend for short periods. During wartime periods like World War II, World War I, the 1812 war, they've done this before, but it's not for a long length of time. It'll be very, very brief periods. And they could potentially, feds could limit travel that way, but obviously that's not going to happen.
Right. Thankfully, hopefully, the governor is advising folks to quarantine, and he said that the compliance rate is good. But it's all voluntary.
Well, Hawaii has taken a much more stringent approach. They're actually fining people in Hawaii who do not self-quarantine. The governor there is not dealing with any constitutional issues. They're just going to penalize folks. And Hawaii is a unique circumstance because being an island state, quite frankly, 3 hours flight, 4 hours flight from California, is maybe I think a little longer than 4 hours. But if there's a major outbreak and something bad happens, it's very difficult to get resources to Hawaii, particularly with multiple islands involved. So an outbreak, really bad outbreak, will overrun the system very quickly. And Hawaii is a rising state on corona numbers. COVID moves its way through the islands. They have a legitimate concern. So I think they have constitutional problems with what they're doing, but given the unique circumstances, I'm not surprised they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. So we're on the precipice of hopefully phase 3 here in Massachusetts. What are you hearing about that? Do you think it's going to start sooner rather than later, or will there be a delay?
I don't know either. I think the governor's kind of looking at this as how people move around during the July 4th weekend.
Hmm.
I'm not sure either when phase 3 is going to implement. I do know that the casinos and the racetracks have been punted to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. So the Gaming Commission is going to determine when those facilities open. We are aware that those facilities are doing massive amount of partitioning, space making. There'll be very limitations on games, limitations on a lot of services at casinos and the racetrack. But they are eager to reopen soon, so they're willing to make those adjustments. I think depending how this weekend goes will largely determine how the next phase will open.
Yeah.
And there's still the signs of all this, as we're talking about, exactly how much respiratory fluids we release when we talk versus when we run versus when we breathe in enclosed areas. But I mean, certain things will be challenged. Like movie theaters will be very challenging, not just gyms, but movie theaters, gyms. The aquarium could be very challenging. Places like that.
I think there needs to be national face mask mandate, Tacky.
I think there needs to be some kind of definitely mandate. If not anything else, lead by example.
Hmm.
It's kind of one of the challenges here is I kind of keep repeating, I do have a mask. I do my best to social distance. The staff and I are definitely working virtually and doing our best on minimizing our contact with other folks and being respectful of space. But it's up to all of us to do that. And the governor and legislators here are working on ensuring trying to be a good example at home as well as local officials. But I mean, I think the national example is necessary. Whether they can do a national face mask by executive order, I presume so as a requirement, but enforcement still comes down to the local level. I mean, police and local health boards are the ones that are in charge of enforcement. So, that's a second part too, and how willing people are going to enforce. Even if it's a national requirement with a penalty involved, it still comes to that level as well.
Sure. So we're in July now, so technically we're in the new fiscal year here in Massachusetts and in cities and towns as well. How is the state budget looking, I guess?
We don't know.
Yeah.
Again, this is the same answer I've given for like 7 times, I think, on this podcast. We passed a 1/12 budget. Governor signed into law on the last day of June to get us through the first month of the new fiscal year of a $5.5 billion budget. We're utilizing FY20 numbers, so cities and towns are pretty much accepted the fact that we're not using the governor's local aid figures, and it's a reflection of that. And it's based on what we paid for in last August. So the number tends to be a little smaller because spending activity tends to be a little smaller. There's less going on. Sorry, the month of July. We're going to have to come back at the end of July if we're going to do another 1/12 budget for the month of August. So that's still looming no matter what. July 15th, your taxes are due. No one wants to hear that. But tax day for federal and state taxes are due July 15th. And once we have those numbers, we have a little bit of a better idea of what fiscal year 20 looked like. But doesn't mean we know what fiscal year 21 looks like.
Sure.
So the treasurer has already initiated $500 million in a line of credit, getting ready for FY21. We do have good bond ratings and good ratings with the bank, so acquiring a line of credit shouldn't be a problem. But it's only a line of credit; we have to pay it back. So people shouldn't be some false impression that we can just take money and not pay it back. So
Right.
I think we'll be okay overall. The system in terms of treasurer, the governor, the legislature all working together on keeping state government open. I'll be very surprised. Actually, we're not going to shut state government down. I can pretty much say that. We're not just going to shut state government down. We'll probably have we're already having service changes in terms of coronavirus, more online stuff, by appointment things, extending time to pay for your licensing fees on your licenses and your education. I mean, we're doing a whole lot of pushing things down the road. But in terms of, close, we won't close state government.
The moratorium on evictions, as you know, was extended. I'm not sure by how long, but it was extended to give people more time, as a lot of folks are still not back to work yet. Do you think that was a good move?
At this point, like I said, unemployment's at 16%.
Yeah.
And the $600 extra people are getting through unemployment benefits will be ending at the end of July.
Right.
So this is where it's going to get very tough, where people are going to have to really now plan ahead on evaluating what they're going to do. And right now, some of the people are able to pay rent because of the extra $600 to get. And we are very sensitive to the fact that landlords have to have mortgages too. They have to pay for utilities. They have to pay for upkeep of the property. At the same time, though, if the property is vacant, and you put more stress on the health and human service system because you go to homeless shelters or you go to some alternative method that may not be safe housing for folks. And we already know about the coronavirus problem in homeless shelters, trying to make sure that it doesn't spread there. So it's really hard for everybody, and this is an unusual time period. The landlords will be impacted because of the rent problems, but then again, if you don't have a renter there, it becomes abandoned, because right now people aren't moving rapidly from apartment to apartment.
Right.
They have the income to do so in some cases. So this is really kind of an awful situation for everybody. But from a public policy standpoint, we don't want to add more homeless population. We don't want to add more to the human service system or expose people to potentially COVID virus in the homeless shelters or assisted, housing assistance places.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there's another economic stimulus package passed in Washington. I know there's discussion about it. It seems to be stalled right now. But again, that's, as you say, kicking the can down the road one more time.
That's correct. I mean, we'll wait and see. The U.S. Senate continues to be debating about this issue internally about what they want to do. The politics is simple. It's election cycle. 1/3 of the Senate's up for re-election. There is no state that has not been negatively impacted by COVID-19. And we do understand they've never done this before. The feds have never done a straight bailout, meaning just give us money, not tied to anything. Federal government money should be tied to a program, tied to a service, tied to a grant, tied to something. So this is very uncharted territory, and we do understand this, but this is also uncharted territory and the massive devastation and the economic impact associated with this, not just retail and shopping and all that, but I mean people's real lives at home.
Yeah. What do you make, Tacky, now about the resurgence of the virus in the South and in the West, and what that says about what was done here as compared to what's done in those communities?
Well, one, the heat doesn't kill it. Just repeating that again. I've been saying this since March. The heat doesn't kill this thing. So people are under this false impression that it operates like the flu. It's not the flu. It's a coronavirus. Coronavirus is more commonly related to the common cold, not related to the flu. So I understand there's that kind of confusion. As Dr. Fauci keeps reminding everybody what's one from the other. Secondly, it's a social distancing issue again. There's a lot of folks who are not taking it seriously. Again, leading by example. It's important for community leaders and civic leaders and political leaders and business leaders to lead by example how we should try to do social distance and mask wearing and being conscious of other people. But that is happening. I think the news reports show the biggest clusters, but I mean, it could be worse if people were doing it already. But obviously, as you see in the news, and you probably see it at home too on the street, some people are just not taking it seriously enough. So the concern that you've been hearing in the news, and I share that concern, is whether or not the hospital system gets overrun. And that's when people die in droves, not just, a few, a lot at one time. And the emotional and physical toll it has on the healthcare workers and all the people in the healthcare systems, as well as the families. So, see more and more stories how, I didn't take this seriously until I got it. I'm like, it's been going on for months now. How do you not take it seriously? And that's kind of the baffling thing about this. And I do get emails from some constituents who deny this virus exists, denies that this is a problem, denies that the medical science behind it, and pretty much claim that this is all hoax. 8,000 plus dead people is not a hoax.
Can we switch gears a little bit and talk about the election process and whether or not folks should be allowed to vote by mail.
Well, the governor will hopefully sign soon a bill to allow voting by mail.
Okay.
Those who voted by absentee ballot, it's basically an expansion of absentee ballots. So the proposal sitting on the governor's desk, which we hope he signs soon, will have the Secretary of State mail by July 15th an application for basically a mail-in ballot, a no excuse absentee ballot, another way of putting it. There'll be another mailer coming out September 14th to also do that. There'll be an online portal for you to apply on your own to get an application form. You can contact your city clerk to get application form. You can contact my office during this month to get more information. You're going clearing this. This is new territory again for all of us. We're learning this as we go as well. Early voting is going to be expanded on the primary, not just the final, to essentially 11 business days or 2 weeks, plus 1 weekend in each instance. There'll be more sanitation requirements, which I don't even know. I think we just going to accept the fact that we are going to have more sanitation requirements. I don't think we have to write that into the law. But for comfort level, just be sure that we wrote into law additional safety requirements at the voting places if people want to vote in person.
Are you concerned about voter fraud at all, Tacky, with mail-in ballots?
I'm not as much concerned because of the fact it forces people to actually apply for a ballot. The original proposals floating out there was that you just give everyone a ballot, no questions asked. The process of actually having to fill out a request for a ballot, just like you would do an absentee ballot, adds a layer of responsibility on the voter to actually take the initiative, as opposed to just people running around collecting ballots. So there's always a possibility of fraud, but by taking affirmative action reduces that possibility, and we still allow the option of voting early and voting by on day of. So if you are concerned about voting day of, you always can call the city clerk's office and figure out when's a good time to show up and vote early.
Yeah. Would the state be prepared maybe to support them financially if they need more resources to accommodate the mail-in ballots?
The state is going to pay for the initial application ballots with self-addressed stamped envelopes.
Oh, okay.
So the secretary has to figure out how to bake into his existing budget structure, despite running on a 1/12 budget.
Right.
Using FY20 numbers, this additional cost. So the fact that we're going to be able to provide the self-addressed envelopes and the application forms to your home.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly, you actually have to put a stamp on your own regarding absentee ballots anyway.
That's correct. Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. Any word from the House Speaker as to physical return to Beacon Hill?
Last email we got last Friday, they're still trying to figure it out. Spacing continues to be a problem. The environmental conditions of the building has, pretty much no ventilation. We don't have a lot of window access. This continues to be a challenge. Working virtually has also become a technological challenge. While my office has uploaded as much stuff to the Google Drives, so to speak, or the cloud drives or UBS flash sticks, and carrying paper out in the office to home they need to work on. I mean, I went to the office to get some law books because I don't keep a set of law books at home. So, I mean, I just went in and grabbed some stuff, rescued my plants. Surprisingly, they're still alive despite all this neglect at work. No one wiring them or giving enough light. But there's a lot of technological challenges currently, even trying to work virtually, as well as physical challenges in the building. So no, we have no time frame.
Okay. Census, Tacky.
Census, yes, we're doing a little bit better now. Let me look at my little sheet of paper here. Yeah. Nationally, we're at 61.8%, which is pretty good. And Massachusetts is running ahead of the average at 63.9%. Weymouth is at the 70.1%. Randolph is at 65.0%. Braintree is at 74.4%, and Milton's at 78.4%. So our neighbors, again, are still pretty well ahead of us, especially Braintree and Milton, which are very much ahead of Quincy in terms of response rate. So, again, the census is starting. It's more telephone-based outreach now. Census would never ask for a bank account number. social security number, ask for gift cards, ask for payment, ask for anything. And if you're concerned about fraud, again, contact our office at 617-722-2014, 617-722-2014, and we're happy to help try to sort out what's a fraudulent system. Same thing with contact tracing. If you may have been exposed to somebody with coronavirus, contact tracing will not ask for bank accounts, they'll not ask for payment services, or things like that. And same thing with the IRS scam. Again, tax day is coming up. The IRS scams will continue, as well as the immigration scams. So, we will not ask for payment at all regarding any kind of services by the government or prosecution. Because I know about the immigration scam and the IRS scam try to scare people to give them money so they don't get deported or go to jail for non-payment of taxes. If there is a problem with your taxes, you'll get a physical letter. If you're still not sure what those physical letters, call my office, and we'll try to see if we can make sure that you can verify it.
Okay. Anything to report on the issue of police reform at the State House, Jackie?
We're still in conversations. The Asian Caucus had a meeting with the Black Latino Caucus last week, as well as working on some language back and forth. Speaker office is still very engaged. He put in a timeline for end of July to put something out there in public. Judiciary, Public Safety, and Public Service Committees, all three committees are working on this matter. As we see in the news, the protests are continuing. I'm very thankful for people in Massachusetts to be smarter, let's quite call it smarter than some other places around the country. People doing daylight hours, no nighttime protests really anymore around here. I mean, pretty much everybody's organizing, doing a safe inside daylight, and people are wearing masks and trying their best to not get in each other in terms of breathing on each other. So, we are paying attention to what's going on. I don't know what we going to have yet in terms of language, but it's definitely in the works, and we are paying attention to the public. I mean, I'm up to well into 150 calls and emails, and still rising.
Wow.
From constituents about police reform.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Would you say that that's exceeded the concern over the virus right now?
I think it is not over concerned the virus, in the sense that the virus is with us. Individual people, I mean, all of us can pick it up at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
I do think because of what people see nationally on the news happen to police killings and shootings on Black people, there is rise that level of awareness here that something does need to change. And Massachusetts is not Georgia, so we do not operate in the same systems. So we have to figure out how to address these concerns within our police force, our training, and any other mechanisms that are out there. So, all cards on the table for conversation. What actually will come out, I don't know yet.
Okay, fair enough. Anything else we should leave with folks today?
Well, I mean, depending on what time this gets online, I mean, just want to wish everyone a happy 4th. And if you can, please try to support your small businesses. I see some outdoor seating and restaurants open in Quincy. But I always remind people, if you're not sure, call ahead. I mean, businesses will do their best to accommodate on pickup or have your packages ready to go if you want to get out and support your local businesses and grab and go. If you are able to, please do consider donating to some of the local charitable organizations. I mean, Interfaith Social Services, Germantown Neighborhood Center, the YMCA, QCAP, Quincy Asian Resources, the Aldering Food Pantry Services. A lot of fundraising for all these organizations have been waylaid at this level. Same thing on neighborhood groups. You may want to drop, a few dollars. You don't have to make big donations, but please consider supporting some of your local organizations that are providing services to all of us.
I know TackieChan.org is your website, right?
Yes, TackieChan.org is the website. We have been posting the governor's press conferences in summary format, so you don't have to read a lot. You just go hit the high points the governor talks about. We continue to use our Facebook at State Representative Tackey Chan Facebook to post information with contact tracing and other news that comes up from the governor's office as quickly as we can. I will tell you, we do not get advance notice of governor's stuff, so we are behind.
Hmm.
It is not my intention. That is us getting information sometimes only as quickly as you get information.
Okay.
And hopefully we can answer some of your questions through those meetings that can take care of some issues that do not have to call or email my office. But if, again, if you got a question, don't be afraid to contact us. The continuation is that the staff is informing me that you should forward an email as we're sorting through my hundreds of emails a day. Your phone, it seems to be most expedient in terms of getting to the fastest conversation, as opposed to emailing back and forth.
Okay. Very good. To you and your family and your staff, a very happy Independence Day. I hope you have a great, healthy, relaxing one.
Well, you too. I wish you all well, and everybody listening as well. And please do enjoy the weekend. I know it's different, but I think we're all fighting new ways to enjoy each other's company while not always in person.
Absolutely. Okay. Talk to you next week, Zaki.
Talk to you next week, Joe.